afternoon, and welcome to the September 9th, 2020 Virginia Beach Planning Commission public hearing. We're glad to see you all here and have you here today. My name is Dee Oliver, and I'm the chairperson of the Planning Commission. And as we get started today, we're going to open up our prayer with Commissioner Costin and our pledge with Commissioner Wall.
Dear Heavenly Father, we come to you today, thanking you for your guidance and wisdom. As we begin this hearing, guide our hearts and our minds in the spirit of fairness, right thought, and speech. Help us to remember our responsibility to serve community and with great insight, guided by understanding, wisdom, and respect for all. As we make decisions today, help us to promote the common good as we work together for the betterment of our great city. As trusted servants, we seek blessings on our deliberations and on our efforts here today. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, thank you very much. So we're going to, next have George is going to introduce the members of the commission and of the planning staff.
All right, thank you, Chair. My name is George Alcaraz. I represent the Beach District. I'm in the construction industry. To my right over here is Jack Wall, who represents the Rose Hall District and is a civil engineer. To my left is John Costin at large and a retired Virginia Beach fire captain. And of course, we have our chairperson, Dee Oliver, at large, and she is a funeral director. And to her left is David Weiner, Kensville District in commercial sales. And then we have Mr. Steve Barnes, representing the Princess Anne District, who is a farmer. And we have next to him is Dave Redmond, representing the Bayside District, and he's in commercial real estate. And to his side is our great Planning Director, Bobby Tahan, if you'd like to introduce your staff.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Alcaraz. As far as planning staff, we do have the zoning administrator, Mr. Kevin Kemp, the planning administrator, Carolyn Smith. We also have Marshall Coleman, Bill Landfair, Wadow with our planning administration staff, as well as Rick Lohman. I think I saw Rick, who is here also, who is with our public works traffic engineering staff. Our attorney, standing in for Ms. Wilson, is Tori Eisenberg, who should be joining us very shortly. With that, Madam Chair, before we do move on, we do want to go ahead and take care of the design awards
Right.
presentation. We'll hand this over to Bill Landfair.
Great.
Thank you, Bobby. Good afternoon. I'm Bill Landfair with the Planning Department, and I welcome you to the 2020 Planning Commission Design Awards ceremony. On behalf of the Planning Commission, I am pleased to announce the award winners for the Annual Design Awards program, which has been honoring projects in our community since 1991. The program recognizes exceptional projects that were built in the past 5 years that are unique and innovative and enhance our built and natural environment. The categories include residential development, commercial development, renovation, public facilities, and sustainable development. The Honor Award recognizes superior projects, and the Merit Award recognizes exemplary projects. An Honor Award in residential development is presented to Mezzo Apartment Homes. This site is located at 305 Mezzo Lane. There are 282 apartment units in 10 buildings. This design is defined by contemporary style, colors, and materials, and a state-of-the-art clubhouse. The Honor Award is accepted today by Grace Smith of TS3 Architects. We welcome you to come forward to accept the award. The next award is in commercial development and is presented to Stihl headquarters. This site is located at 536 Viking Drive. The new headquarters building features a Stihl Experience Museum, a concept store, a 300-seat auditorium, labs, and offices. As an homage to the chainsaw, the interior features accents of rough sawn and weathered wood. The building has a vegetated green roof. The honor award is accepted today by Marise Millal with HBA Architecture and Interior Design. We welcome you to come forward to accept the award. The next award is a Merit Award in Renovation and is presented to Bobo's Fine Chicken Restaurant. This site is located at 3139 Shore Drive. The project transformed the former 1950s style Charlie's Seafood Restaurant into Bobo's Fine Chicken. The exterior of the building has aluminum rain canopies, updated colors, and a neon sign to create a reminiscent beacon for the restaurant. The Merit Award is accepted today by Richard Midget of Bobo's Fine Chicken Restaurant. We welcome you to come forward to accept the award. The next award is in Public Facilities and is presented to Seatack Elementary School Urban Garden. The site is located at 912 South Bird Neck Road. The Community Garden Project was an effort from the philanthropic arm of Pharrell Williams' organization, I Am Other, which continues to support the garden with annual maintenance funding. A student-driven design charrette included the students of the Garden Breakfast Club, who were already involved in taking care of the garden. The new design tripled the gardening space and included edible tree species, pollinators, shrubs, an improved arbor gateway, an outdoor classroom, a new greenhouse, a gathering circle, compost bins, and various decorative artwork. Harvested fruits and vegetables will be used within the school's cafeteria and throughout the summer months when the students, parents, and garden volunteers can harvest the crops. The Merit Award is accepted by Billy Allman of WPL. We welcome you to come forward to accept the award.
I know.
The next award is an honor award for sustainable development and is presented to the Virginia Beach Parks and Recreation Administration Building. This site is located at 2154 Lansdowne Road. The goals for the building were to provide a healthier work environment, align with the department's commitment to a sustainable future, and provide the community with improved access to programs. The location was selected to maximize existing sightlines and to take advantage of the unique park setting. The building's footprint stretches and protrudes out into the site like fingers from a hand, creating pockets and courtyards which preserve existing trees, provide areas for gardens, and outdoor community spaces, increasing viewing angles from the interior out to the site, and introducing daylight into the core of the building. Beneath the parking area, 70 geothermal wells act as a heat exchanger to dissipate heat in the summer and absorb it in the winter. To keep solar heat gain to a minimum, specialized glass was selected. Exterior solar shades were designed with horizontal blades that block light during warmer months, but permit daylight during cooler months to promote passive heating. The honor award is accepted by Andrew McKinley of Via Design Architects. We welcome you to come forward to accept the award. The final award is a Merit Award for Sustainable Development and is presented to HRSD Headquarters Building. The site is located at 1434 Air Rail Avenue. The Hampton Roads Sanitation District, or HRSD, engaged a design team to evaluate the development of a sustainable landscape management strategy at the corporate headquarters. Meadow management has resulted in stormwater management features covered with wildflowers, providing habitat, erosion control, nutrient management, pollutant mitigation, storm system relief, and a reduction on the annual budget of the landscape management. As a result of this project, HRSD has changed their entire landscape management process at all of their sites in the Tidewater area. The Merit Award is accepted by Billy Allman of WPL. We welcome you to come forward to accept the award. Thank you for your participation in the Planning Commission Design Awards, and congratulations to all the 2020 winners.
Thank you all. All right, Mr. Landfair, you want to start with the readings of the rules?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Today's meeting is being held both virtually and in person in order to comply with proper social distancing guidelines. The Virginia Beach Planning Commission takes pride in being fair and courteous to all parties in attendance. It is important that all involved understand how the Commission normally conducts its meetings. It is equally important that everyone treat each other and the members of the Commission with respect and civility. The Commission requests that if you all have a cell phone, please either silence it or turn it off while in the chamber. This is an abbreviated explanation of the rules. The complete set of rules is located in the front of the Planning Commission agenda. Following is the order of business for this public hearing. Withdrawals and deferrals. The chairman will ask if there are any requests to withdraw or defer an item on the agenda. Consideration of these requests will be made first. Consent agenda. The second order of business is the consideration of the consent agenda, which are those items that the Planning Commission believes are unopposed and which have favorable staff recommendation. Regular agenda. The Commission will then proceed with the remaining items on the agenda. Speakers in support or opposition of an agenda item will have 3 minutes to speak, unless they are solely representing a large group, such as a civic league or homeowners association, in which case they will have 10 minutes. Speakers who are participating virtually today, please mute any additional devices you have in the room to avoid any unnecessary background noise and/or the possibility of echoing and reverberation. Please note that once your name is called, you should wait 3 seconds before speaking to ensure the Planning Commission hears your complete remarks. Please begin your comments by identifying yourself. Also, do not ask, "Can you hear me?" as only one feed is open at a time to minimize the echo reverberation, and as such, you will be unable to hear a response. Please note that the actions taken by the Commission today are in the form of a recommendation to the Virginia Beach City Council. The final decision to approve or disapprove an application will be made by the City Council. The Commission thanks you for your attendance, and we hope that your experience here today leaves you feeling that you have been heard and treated fairly. Thank you.
Thank you, Bill. The first order of business is the consideration of requests to be withdrawn or deferred an item. Bill?
There are 2 items requesting a deferral, agenda items 1 and 5. The first item is agenda item 1, the application of McNeil Properties for a conditional use permit for an automobile repair garage located at 4901 Cleveland Street in the Bayside District. The request is for a deferral to the October 14th Planning Commission hearing. The applicant's representative is R.J. Nutter, who is not in attendance today, but has provided staff with a letter requesting the deferral. This deferral will allow the applicant and staff to discuss further the specifics of the application. The next item requesting for deferral is agenda item 5, an application of Shelley Gale Dagenhart for a conditional use permit for short-term rental located at 2113 Atlantic Avenue, Unit 2B, in the Beach District. The Planning Commission voted to indefinitely defer this application at the August 12th Planning Commission hearing. This application was re-added to this agenda for September by the applicant, who had hoped the modifications to the short-term rental requirements were enacted. As that has not happened, the applicant, who is not in attendance today, has provided staff a letter requesting to defer indefinitely again. awaiting the outcome of potential changes to the short-term rental regulations.
Great, thank you. Is there anyone here in opposition to the deferral of items 1 and 5? Do I have a motion to defer items 1 and 5, please?
Madam Chair, I move for approval deferring item 1 for 30 days to the October 14th Planning Commission hearing and item number 5 indefinitely.
Do I have a second, please?
Second.
All right, hearing a second, are there any commissioners that need to abstain on these items to be deferred? All right, will you call for the question, please?
Okay. If you're in favor of the motion, say yes, and if you are opposed, say no. Mr. Alcaraz?
Yes.
Mr. Barnes?
Yes.
Mr. Costin?
Yes.
Mr. Graham is absent. Mr. Horsley is absent. Mr. Inman is absent, and Ms. Klein is also absent. Mr. Redmond?
Yes.
Mr. Wall?
Yes.
Mr. Weiner?
Yes.
And Ms. Oliver?
Yes.
By recorded vote of 7-4 and 0 against, with abstentions noted, item 1 has been deferred to October 14th public hearing, and item 5 has been deferred indefinitely.
Thank you. The next order of the business is the consent agenda. Our Vice Chair, David Weiner, will handle this portion of the meeting. I do understand that we do have one person signed up to speak in favor of item 6 on the consent agenda. Is that correct? Would you like to go ahead and come on up now before we go on with the vote? Thank you. Would you state your name for the record?
Yep, my name is Kathy Runkle. I live at 316 26th Street, and I was here earlier for your informal discussion. And I know there was some discussion on item 6, and I think there was a couple others that they haven't built the properties yet. So there was some discussion and concern that you were potentially approving or, I guess, consenting on items that hadn't been built. And I just, wanted to speak up in favor of the redevelopment and the development of the Old Beach area. I know there's been a lot of construction, a lot of people are opposed to it, but living there, there's a lot of old, rundown, dilapidated houses, vacant lots that these developers are redeveloping, and they're making Virginia Beach so much nicer. I can only think of one building that's been built in the last few years, so I thought, oh, what is that? But, I often, run into some of the developers, and I'm like, hey, would you please buy this property across the street from me? Like, I would prefer it be a short-term rental on every house on my street than some of the old and rundown, dilapidated. You end up with, quote, neighbors in there that might not be the best neighbors. So, as much as people are sometimes opposed to it, I think if you ride down Arctic Avenue and Baltic and some of the side streets compared to what they were 6 or 8 years ago, I think there's a huge improvement. So, I don't see any negatives to these builders coming in without their plans and are hoping, they'll know if they have to sell the house or short-term rental, because the floor plan might be slightly different depending upon the ultimate purpose of building these houses. Thanks.
Thank you very much for taking the time to come down and speak. And with that, we are going to go ahead and move on to the consent agenda. And Mr. Weiner? Yes, you. Would you take that over, please?
Thank you, Madam Chair. These are applications that are recommended for approval by staff, and the Planning Commission concurred. There are no speakers signed up in opposition to the Planning Commission. The Planning Commission places these on the following applications on consent agenda. Items number 2, 3, and 4 on the consent agenda. The Planning Commission also places the following applications for the conditional use permit of short-term rental on the consent agenda as they meet the applicable requirements for Section 241.2 of the zoning ordinance. Staff and Planning Commission supports the applications, and there are no known speakers signed up to comment. This be item 6, 7, 10, and 11. Let's see, is there anyone here in opposition to these items being put on the consent agenda? Hearing none, I move for approval of the following items being on the consent agenda, items 2, 3, and 4, 6, 7, 10, and 11.
Right. Thank you. Is there a second, please?
Second.
All right, we've got a second. Does anybody need to abstain from any of these items? Oh, I do. Excuse me. Hold on one second. I forgot it went on. I'm going to abstain from item number 7. I'm a party to a court case that is unrelated to the Planning Commission or this application, but a representative of the applicant is involved in this case, so I've chosen to abstain. Okay.
If you're in favor of the motion, say yes, and if you're opposed, say no. Mr. Alcaraz?
Yes.
Mr. Barnes?
Yes.
Mr. Costin?
Yes.
Mr. Graham, Mr. Horsley, Mr. Inman, and Ms. Klein are all absent. Mr. Redmond?
Yes.
Mr. Wall?
Yes.
Mr. Weiner?
Yes.
And Ms. Oliver?
Yes, with the exception of number 7.
Okay, by a recorded vote of 7-4 and 0 against, with the extension noted on number 7, the following items 2, 3, 4, 6, 7, 10, and 11 have been recommended for approval by consent. If you've had an application that was on consent agenda today, your request will now be scheduled for an upcoming city council meeting. Staff will contact you about the date. So that others may attend in the chamber, please exit via the side door. If you are watching virtually, you are free to exit or stay and watch. Thank you all for your participation.
Thank you for coming down. And now we will move on.
Yes, the next order of business is the regular agenda, and Bill Landfair will introduce the first application.
Right.
Madam Chair, we have 8 items on today's regular agenda. The first item to be heard are agenda items 8 and 9, Stewart and Lori Goldwag, for conditional use permit requests for short-term rentals at 2020 Baltic Avenue, Units A and B in the Beach District. The applicant's representative is Eddie Bourdon. Mr. Bourdon, you have up to 10 minutes. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Lanfair. Madam Chair, members of the commission, for the record, Eddie Bourdon, Virginia Beach attorney. It is my privilege to come before the commission this afternoon representing Stewart and Lori Goldwag, who are the owners of the subject property. This is a proposal to redevelop a 60-plus-year-old bungalow at the corner of 20th and Baltic Avenues in the OR district with a new 3-story short-term rental, 2-unit short-term rental, I should say, with an outdoor pool and with 8 on-site parking spaces. Elevations are a first blush. We will have to meet and will meet all of the requirements of the form-based code, which we are pretty close to meeting at this point, but there will be some additional review as it goes through the DSC process with the SGA folks. I want to also thank Will Miller and Zoning Administrator Kevin Kemp and Director Bobby Tahan for their tireless efforts in dealing with this short-term rental issue citywide. And as you guys know, you all have spent many, many hours over the last 2+ years dealing with the issues of STRs. I thought it might be a time to get back to the foundation of our land use restrictions, and that is our zoning districts. Our 1973 conventional zoning ordinance, which actually followed on 1957's conventional zoning ordinance for the town of Virginia Beach as it pertains to this property, is still to this day the basic foundation of our CZO. Hasn't changed, almost 50 years later. There have been many tweaks and modifications to our zoning ordinance, however, and one of the most significant ones is the adoption just a few years ago of form-based codes in a couple of our SGAs. One of those areas is the Oceanfront Resort District, the OR District. And this property is smack dab in the middle of it in the Central Beach District. Now, I provided you all with a handout, and I pulled some things out of the form-based code. And I want to first of all read just one sentence that's on the first page of the handout. The standards of form-based codes presented in both diagrams and words are keyed to a regulating plan that designates the appropriate form and scale of development rather than only distinctions in uses. This is in contrast to conventional zoning's focus on the micromanagement and segregation of land uses and the control of development intensity through abstract and uncoordinated parameters to the neglect of an integrated built form. Our form-based code on the second page, giving you a copy of the area that is the Central Beach District from 22nd Street on the north to 17th Street. And we're right smack dab in the middle of it on this piece of property. The next page, I got it marked and circled, what the Central Beach 17th and 19th Street and Atlantic Avenues are supposed to look like someday. Someday. But that's what we have adopted. Most importantly after that are the height map, the frontage map, and the setback map. And those are keys to form-based code. And I've marked this piece of property on all three of those exhibits. You'll note on the height map that this half a block north of 20th and half a block south of 20th, the height is 45 feet. Directly to our north and to our south, height 75 feet of new structures. And then to the, actually west, you get all the way up to 110 feet. 5-foot setbacks, not your typical suburban zoning that we have elsewhere in the city of Virginia Beach. And as you can well understand when you look at this and the entirety of form-based code, this was a forward-looking effort to see this area substantially and significantly and much higher value redevelop. So it is not Shadow Lawn, it is not Lakewood, it is not Old Beach, and it's not Sea Pines. All of those areas still have conventional zoning. This area does not. And that's a distinction that cannot be overstated. The gateway streets, 21st, 22nd, 17th, yes, and 19th, all of those have large commercial components. This is not yours and mine growing up residential neighborhood. This is an area that is intended to be highly developed, very, very highly developed. The Goldwags are looking at investing between well over $1 million. The value of this property will go up at least 200, probably closer to 300% with this redevelopment of this piece of property. And you've already seen redevelopment take place across the street at Baltic and 21st Street, a large condominium complex that was built before we ever adopted form-based code because the city has been pushing and pushing to see this area redeveloped. And that's exactly what this represents. And that's exactly what the city council approved on as you go out of the oceanfront on 22nd Street. Jerry Miller, all that development of short-term rentals transformed 22nd Street. And that was all with city council approval prior to form-based code, all short-term rentals. So the reason I bring all this up is that this is not like the other areas of the city that you all have to deal with. This is very unique, and it, as staff correctly indicates, it's exactly where short-term rentals need to be. We're 3.5 blocks at most from the ocean, from the pavilion, from the new sports center, the Vibe District, and we're about 70 feet catty corner across Baltic Avenue from the Dome site, where we hope to have yet another very substantial commercial development. This is not Old Beach. This is not Shadow Lawn. Plain and simple. And staff correctly notes it's exactly where short-term rentals should be. Now, I know this was going to be on the consent agenda, but my clients who are making this investment, and frankly, others in this area that should be making the investment, do not believe that it's appropriate, as it may very well be in other more conventional zoned areas, for there to be this one one rental per week restriction. Now, I know the idea that council may change that to 52 rentals a year, which gives flexibility, but we don't know that. And you all are here to advise city council, not to presume what city council is going to do. And I would ask that you all individually decide what you think is the best way to handle a short-term rental in an area of the city that is not conventionally zoned, where we're absolutely pushing complete and total redevelopment. The other condition that also should not apply here is the 5-year limitation. Why? Again, why? It's about form. It's not about micromanaging uses. If you meet all the criteria and you abide by the requirements, then there shouldn't be a 5-year limitation in the OR district. It's a big difference. And that's something that I don't think has been discussed quite enough and may not change what you all recommend. But we wanted to put it on the record that this is totally different than the other areas that have conventional zoning. This is an area where we've adopted a code that says we want to incentivize huge development in this area in terms of large buildings up on the road. You had a presentation this morning about cafes, in the public right of way. This is the area where that's perfectly okay to do. I'm not going to do it on a short-term rental, but it's completely different than the suburban neighborhoods we've gotten and what we still have at some parts of at the ocean front. And that's something that I think needs to be a part of a discussion. We hope that you will recommend approval as staff has recommended, as we were going to do this morning, but would consider those two conditions, the 5-year limitation and the 1 per week, which is a lot less flexible than what may happen, but we don't know what's going to happen when it gets to city council with their overlay. Be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Burdon. Do we have any questions for Mr. Burdon?
There you
No.
go. This is
No.
Beach.
Yes, Jack?
I've got a couple questions about the form of the
Thank you.
building.
I was hoping you would ask.
So there's a third story. Can you describe a little bit about the material or what that,
I
the
can
character of that
can
form of that
assure,
third story?
I will be happy to. But what first thing I want to say is, this is a first blush. I've talked to my clients. It's not going to wind up looking like this. The architect, was trying to bring in a New Orleans look, and I don't think my clients are sold on it, and certainly I'm not. So, not that my opinion matters, but that third floor is probably not going to look like that. And that's what the form-based code and the city's review will take that into account. This was just to put something out there. The front will, I think there probably needs to be some shutters and some other additions to the sides as well. But this was a process to get the short-term rental use out there. But I heard your comments earlier. I've already made those similar comments myself, Mr. Wall. But the third floor it's not going to be that dark color, and it's probably not going to have a flat roof on it. It doesn't need to. Again, we've got a 45-foot height limit, not a 35. I think the architect believed that there was 35, didn't realize it was not in a standard residential district in Virginia Beach. So that it's going to be more attractive than what that third floor looks like, I can assure you.
Okay, because it looks like, most of the buildings on that street do have a pitched roof. So it would, most of the.
Yeah,
the
that
homes
flat
do
roof,
have-
I think, was because of the mistaken belief that there was a 35-foot height limitation. And that third floor design is going to be modified. I think the front looks, great. We have to put the wide sidewalks in there, et cetera. And I think there should be a little bit of dressing up of the side elevation, but the third floor is going to be changed. There's no two ways about it.
And I'm fine with that. The only thing is that we have condition number 4 that says that the proposed building shall be in substantial conformance with the submitted concept plan
Well,
prepared by, this exhibited to the city council and is on file.
I think it should be modified to read in accordance with the form-based requirements of form-based code, because I think there needs to be more, I think it's not called glass, but there needs to be, I think, more windows and others on the side as well. And the third floor, like I say, we're not gonna, it's not gonna look like that third floor.
And this, I guess then this question would be for the planning staff. Can we edit that if it gets at this to, when we get to that point, can it be edited to state, proposed building shall be in substantial conformance with, guessing the form-based code, if that aligns with,
Yes, Mr. Wall. If it's the will of the commission to edit the condition, we can do that.
Which one was that, Jack?
that's condition number 4.
Okay. Got it. Have any other questions? Yes, David?
And thank you, Commissioner Wall. I appreciate the question.
Mr. Burdon, I don't know if you were there a couple weeks ago, at 1 o'clock in the morning.
I was there till 11:30. I got the pleasure of leaving before you all did.
Well, 1 o'clock in the morning, we had the same discussion with an applicant that said his short-term rental was not deserving of it, 1 per 7 days, and in a location. And I disagree with him. That's what and I know how you feel, but I disagree with them, and this is the way we are, and we're going to be consistent about it. At least I am. And that's the way, I tell you the truth, I really like that, tell you the truth. I do. But, I'm all for even making a motion for approval, but it's going to be 1 per 7 days.
It's up to the commission. I'm not here to argue with you.
No,
I'm just here to
saying.
put information out there, and I appreciate what everyone's thoughts on the subject are.
Okay.
Mr. Burdon, can you flip back to the side street view on their renderings?
Catches the
By
back as
chance?
well.
There, right there. Signage.
Yeah.
What's the deal with that?
Oh, no, they put there, because of form-based code, the screening wall is there.
Well, I get the wall.
Right,
I
and they
don't-
just,
but-
they just put that on, the architects put that on there. There won't be, and frankly, unless there's a change to the ordinance, there won't be any signage there.
Well, I was about to say, I don't,
No, I think the only, what I think there's been discussion of, I think the Commissioner of Revenue's office would like to see, but that we would typically put that by the front door. Is a little sign
Yeah.
with the contact information for the agent and all that stuff, but there's not gonna be a sign there.
but not like that. So
No, I don't think there will be a
no.
sign at all. And in fact, I think that's what the note at the bottom is
I
saying.
can't read it.
Yeah, I
can't read
understand.
it that close, I'm
But
sorry.
no, there's no sign, and that's what that note is saying, that
Thank you.
it doesn't, it's not in compliance with.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, good catch.
Yeah, I did, okay.
I was gonna say, this was, again, this was done to get in the, to get
Got it.
the conversation.
That's good. Thank you.
Thank you.
You have, Mr. Redmond has a
No,
question.
I don't have
for
a
you.
question.
No?
I'm sorry, I jumped the gun.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Oh, hold on, I have one more.
Oh, Mr. Wall
Sorry.
has one more. Mr. Burdon?
Would you be, this doesn't necessarily have, a lot of teeth to it, but to add a condition that, to the maximum extent practicable, that the site is developed in a way to maintain existing landscaping.
I'm sorry, maintains?
Existing landscaping? Mature landscaping? Okay,
Yeah, to the extent practical, I'm fine with
okay.
that.
Would that be, that means there's some mature trees.
Yeah, there's a huge tree on that lot,
Huge tree,
in between that and the
It's-
house north of it.
one right on the corner.
You have to look at the site plan.
There's not a
Again,
lot of room, but
we have, I don't know how much, given what the development is supposed to be in this area, how much is gonna, but that, all right, well, that particular tree is probably in the right of way,
in the right of way.
right? And we couldn't, we couldn't take that down. That would be up to, that'd be up to the city as to whether that, but that's correct. But on site, I certainly don't know that there's anything on site that's likely to be able to be retained. But that condition is not a problem, because if it's practical. Because we have to have the 8 on-site parking spaces, and that obviously takes up a lot of site.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anything else
I got just,
for Mr. Burdon?
no, sorry. Mr.
Okay.
Kahan.
Okay, thank you.
So in the OR district, I consider it different. And I know when we had our, I guess you call our workshop hearing, but you said that they might go 52 week is what their city council, 52 a year. Is there a max on that per week?
No, again, we're just in rough draft stages, but what was handed out to council yesterday is 52 rentals per year.
Where I'm lost is I thought when we made the recommendation, it was for the OR and the overlay district. I thought that's what we voted on.
No, it was,
Because now I'm hearing it's 52 max, so
Well,
a year.
that's what they are in discussions about
Okay.
now. What we voted on, and correct me if I misspeak, what we voted on a couple of weeks ago was that it was going to go to 2 per room. Parking had to be on site and one rental per week. And that's where we are right now. That's what we voted on, and that's what went to council. Now, council, as we've seen in the last month, I'm going to officially close this
I
to the
think we have
commissioners.
speakers, don't
But as we've seen this last month being with council.
Speakers.
Oh, we have more speakers?
Madam Chair, we have one speaker signed up to speak.
Well, then.
Kathy Runkle.
Sorry.
Ms. Runkle, please
Thank you.
state your name for the record.
Hi, Kathy Runkle. Again, I live at 316 26th Street. Interestingly enough, probably in 2015, the house next door to me, the guy decided to rent it out as a short-term rental, and the house behind me decided to rent it out as a short-term rental. As one might imagine, I wasn't thrilled about it because you had the fear of the unknown. As it turns out, having families in Virginia Beach vacationing as my neighbors was a wonderful experience. The next year, and I think that's part of the challenge is people are fearful of the unknown. They're afraid to have it as their neighbors. We had someone show up at the Resort Beach Civic League, and she said, I have them behind me, next door, across the street, and I love it, So it's interesting perspective. But the next year, he decided to sell the house. So I bought the house next door to me, and I made it a short-term rental. And I'm only speaking now because I know the condition on this particular item is renting it 1 time per week. So I went through my personal records for 4 years, for 2016, 17, 18, and 19, when I could have, before November of last year, I could have rented it every day. So in theory, I could have rented it 365 times a year. And then when you look at doing it twice a year, I know at the Resort Beach Civic League, they're like, Kathy, that's 104 families coming and going every year. But that's not reality. I had each year between 20 and 23 rentals a year. So people came and went 20 to 23 times, and the average stay was 5 times. So, allowing someone to rent it twice a week or 3 times a week, it doesn't mean they're coming and going every day. And part of that is because of the cleaning fee they're paying. Most people don't want to come for 2 days and pay a $200 cleaning fee on top of the rent. So, I think it's a lot, and unfortunately, I was out of town a couple weeks ago when you guys talked about these subjects all night long, but I thought, well, since the subject came up on this particular property, I would just speak up now, and it sounds like we might have modifications, but, the suggestion of 52 times a year, I think that's a great alternative, but I just wanted to say, just because somebody wants to do it more than once a week, doesn't mean every single week they're gonna have families coming and going twice a week. Like, that's not reality in the rental world, the short-term rental world out there. So, thank you.
Oh, I got one question, sorry.
Sure.
What's your window of when you start and when you end for your season of rentals?
I could rent it all year long. Like, it stays vacant in the winter if I don't get somebody in there. I actually have had families want to rent it in the winter, but they want to pay $1,500. It is not worth the risk to me to have somebody in there in the winter for $1,500 a month. And there's the wear and tear and the furniture and the possibility of destruction, when in June, I can start getting $3,000 a week. Interestingly enough, in April, every single one of my reservations canceled because of COVID. So I rented it out annually starting June 1st because there was this unknown, right? unfortunately for me, the season's been great for short-term rentals. Everyone's fully booked, There's no empty properties at the oceanfront, which has been great. I think, and last thing I'm going to say a little bit on a different subject. We spend a ton of time in Virginia Beach worrying about short-term rentals, and there's a much bigger problem in Virginia Beach down at the oceanfront with the destruction, the violence, the disruption. And I can tell you, those people are not staying in short-term rentals. Like that, to me, short-term rentals is not the biggest problem in Virginia Beach right now. It's the destruction going on down at the oceanfront. So, thank you.
Where are you short-term?
I'm on 26th Street.
You're on 20, in what?
So I
block?
live in 316 and I rent out 318.
You're on 26th Street.
Yep, between Arctic and Pacific.
Okay.
Yeah. So it's interesting because the people that moved in long-term, they came from Shore Drive. And the first Saturday night, they rode their bikes from 26th Street to Dairy Queen. And they came back, and the husband said his wife was petrified going down Atlantic Avenue. I mean, and I actually said if I was renting it out to short-term renters and they were, between taxes, cleaning fees and all that, they're spending about $3,800, I would be embarrassed that they did not feel safe to go down to the beach. So, I mean, I was kind of glad I wasn't doing it because it hasn't been a great environment. I know that's a different subject, but I don't think those people are in our short-term rentals.
Got it.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Madam Chair, there are no more speakers.
All right. Sorry, I jumped the gun on you, Bill, on that one. All right, we'll close it and the hearing and open it up to the commissioners right now. So, anybody want to go? Mr. Redmond?
Yeah, Mr. Burdon makes a really good point, and I don't think we've discussed it yet, or at least I haven't seen it, and that is the nature of the short-term rentals in the context of form-based code. And this is a very helpful document that he passed out. I remember I was here, of course, when we did form-based code, and that was the whole point, and it's in the ordinance, is that it is the form, not the use, that has primacy. It's the form that you're going for in the built environment, whether it's a nail shop or a cafe or a residence. That's not really what it's supposed to be about. It's supposed to be about the built environment. But within the short-term rental debate, of course, it's 100% the use. The whole topic is the use, and not, is there more trash from that or a longer-term rental, or it's just the use itself has become everything. So which, that really is quite completely conflicting with form-based code, and that's in our ordinance. So I think we really need to think about that. I mean, not just us, I mean city council, us as a community understand this, because that was a real advance in our zoning ordinance. I will also say that he's made the point, others have made the point, that short-term rentals are causing redevelopment. They are the purpose that certain places are redeveloping, and this lady here said it quite well, I think, earlier. What in the world is so admirable about that house that's sitting right there on our screen? I don't know why in the world we wouldn't want to have that property redeveloped. And if form is that which has primacy within the form-based code, it seems to me you're talking about an improvement. I don't like the idea, very frankly, that city council is using the conditional use permit part of the application as though it's the ordinance. The ordinance says one thing, they're acting in a different way with regard to the number of people in a bedroom and the number of rentals. Just put it in the ordinance is, I think, frankly, the straighter and more honest way to go about that. Otherwise, the law says one thing and you act a different way. I don't know how people can trust laws that are written that way, and we ought to have trust within our law. So I think that ought to be, you could probably write up an ordinance this afternoon and put it on their desks that would accomplish that, and maybe that's coming, but I don't think that's the right way to go about it. So I think he's kind of hit on some important points in that regard, and this debate is nowhere near over, of course. It's the first time I heard about the 52 times a year thing. That seems to me to make a heck of a lot more sense, which is why I think we've got to take a breath and understand some things that do make sense. But I think he's raised some very good and interesting points there that we ought to think about as a community because they do make sense. Thank you.
You're welcome. Mr. Weiner, what do you want to say? Did you want to say something?
Mr. Don, didn't we just, isn't that going to council next week for this, one per 7 and 2 per bedroom?
So I think we may be getting some of the things confused. The Old Beach recommendations did not include.
Oh, it didn't include that?
It did not
Okay.
include that.
Okay.
Those were,
Okay.
what's confusing about it is that we were reviewing those when council imposed the new conditions of
Right.
2 people per bedroom and 1 rental per week.
Okay, I thought we did. I don't remember the lady's name, but thank you very much. That was really enlightening, and I kind of thought about it a little bit, but you're 100% right. Even if we do 52 a year, there's no way you're going to get 3 or 4 in a week. It's just not going to happen. But until that 52 a year comes out, it's not in front of us right now. So I'm still going to stick with the 1 per 7 days.
Anybody else? I have to say, the applicant's done a great job as far as their drawing, their rendering of what they'd like to do. And I appreciate the form-based code, but we have found down in that district, the form-based code has its own issues, as it's been applied to other buildings down there. But it's a great drawing. But we have voted on the once a week, and we did come to terms with how many per bedrooms, and that's what we have agreed on, and I need to stand by that, because that's where we are. And we can debate I feel like we can debate all day about form-based code and all of those things and what it should be and what we'd like to see or whatever, but that's where we are today. And we've asked all these other applicants to adhere to those that we've put in place, and it wouldn't be fair to, or at least personally, I don't think it would be fair to change the rules in the middle of the road just for this. And then, you have to look at, it is in the OR section, and it is catty-cornered to probably what will one day hopefully will be a water park. But then you have the letter from the people, as Bill and I stood there and looked, that is, everything west of that is not short-term rental. It is their homes, and then, the people here write a letter about that they're right behind it and are concerned, is this a hotel? What is this kind of thing? And so you want to be respectful of the neighbors as well going forward, but you certainly want to see them, develop the piece of property as nicely as they are, and I am assured that they will run a very, very, very nice short-term rental, but I am at 1 a week, unfortunately. So with that, we are going to need a motion. And,
Dee, excuse me.
yes, sir,
Before you do, can I make one more point?
you sure can.
We had just a brief discussion about these elevations here. Can I
Uh-huh.
just throw out, I'm not at all opposed to the idea of something on the street that looks a little different. The idea that you have that third level is flat and has some different things. Too much of our stuff is kind of looking all the same these days, and a little bit of originality is not a bad thing in some places. I'm not sure that's it. I'm just saying the idea that it has to look like everything else on the street I don't think is where we ought to go with this stuff. We ought to have some diversity within the built environment, and it needs to be attractive and well done and all that stuff, but we've got to have more than the same looking stuff. Thank you.
All right. Well, I need a motion
I'll make a motion for approval.
with the
What's in
once
the
a week.
conditions? Yeah, well, the conditions are in here now,
conditions.
once a week. So what's in here, but Jack wants to add.
I mean, I would like to it doesn't mean that they have to change it. It's just that it has to be in accordance with form-based code. I'm not sure what the architectural standards are within the, I'll be honest with you, I'm not really sure what those standards are.
I will ask this,
Yeah.
the guidelines for this area, there are set guidelines are they set guidelines as in form-based code, or are they set guidelines as in Old Beach guidelines?
It's not like Old Beach guidelines. So it's set similar to what Mr. Perdon provided to you is essentially the massing that they're allowed to have.
Okay.
And so there are some, it will need to get reviewed for compliance with that code, so.
Okay, and one thing about, the condition as it's written is that it will look like the elevation views that are within this application. And, I'm not necessarily opposed to it. Looks a little odd. You do have a deck in the front of the building on the second floor, above the second floor. So it looks a little odd for the architecture that is, currently along the street, in my opinion. But I think that if we add some flexibility in there, then it's not so rigid as to say that it's going to look like this elevation view in the application.
Can I take a stab at that for you, Mr. Wall?
Sure.
So at the end of the sentence, on file with the Department of Planning and Community Development, unless deviations are approved by the planning director or his designee in accordance with the OR form-based code.
Thank you. Can you say that again, Mr. Tan?
Yes. I'm gonna look at Mr. Kemp to make sure he's okay with that condition. Are we okay with that? Okay. Sorry, give me one, I'm writing it down as well while we're doing this. Okay, so, it would read, as it currently reads, the proposed building shall be in substantial conformance with the submitted concept plans entitled Crescent Court dated August 4th, 2020, prepared by Altruistic Design, which has been exhibited and is on file with the Department of Planning and Community Development, unless deviations are approved by the planning director or his designee in conformance with the OR form-based code district.
That's perfectly agreeable to the applicant.
That's the motion.
Okay, all right, then that's fine.
Is that all right?
Just-
You don't like that?
I think it just says it's going to be this way unless unless deviations are approved by the city staff, which is, that's fine. It gives them the flexibility to make any deviations that they feel appropriate, but it doesn't necessarily change the form of the building
Okay.
and the way that it looks currently. Yeah, let's move forward. That's fine.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. So we have a motion on the floor by Commissioner Weiner to approve the application with the addition of the condition and as in one rental per week. Do I have a second, please?
Second.
Thank you, Commissioner Wall. Can you call for the question, please?
Sure. If you are in favor of the motion, say yes, and if you are opposed, say no. Mr. Alcaraz?
Yes.
Mr. Barnes? Mr. Costin?
Yes.
Mr. Graham, Mr. Horsley, Mr. Inman, and Ms. Klein are all absent. Mr. Redmond?
Yes.
Mr. Wall?
Yes.
Mr. Weiner?
Yes.
Ms. Oliver?
Yes.
By a recorded vote of 7 for and 0 against, agenda items 8 and 9 are hereby recommended for approval by the Planning Commission with the notations to condition number 4 to include changes to add conformance with the form-based code and to add one rental per week.
Madam Chair, the next item is agenda item 12, Carol Davis for conditional use permit request for short-term rental at 1305 Chickadee Lane in the Beach District. The applicant is Carol Davis. Mr. Davis is a virtual speaker. Mr. Davis, you have up to 10 minutes. Thank you. Ms. I'm sorry, it's Ms. Davis.
The, the reason for wanting to request the short-term rental comes from the fact that for the past year and a half, my boyfriend and I have been kind of either living at his house or living at my house, and therefore, I had just thought maybe to go through the process for the short-term rental. I know that when going out of town, I'd rather stay in a short-term rental than staying in a hotel. Something about the peace and relaxation and having my own space is a little bit more enjoyable. And therefore, frankly, I just wanted to fulfill, complete the application and for periodically putting my house up for as a short-term rental, um, and really to assist the Virginia Beach economy. Um, and then I really wanted to focus this specifically for families that either couldn't afford to stay at the ocean front, because I'm really not that far from there, and to also for those families that kind of need their own space as well. Like I had mentioned, what I look forward to when I travel versus the hotel, um, and therefore those families being able to do that as well. So I believe that's all I have.
Okay. Do we have, I know we had one letter. Do we have any questions for the applicant? I know we had one letter of opposition.
Madam
There-
Chair, there are no more known speakers.
Okay. All right. Why are we? Mr. Wall, did you?
I do have a question. It has this as, and maybe I've seen this before, as just on the second page of the application, it says it's registered already. Is that? And I think this has come up before. I'm just curious why it doesn't say under review. It just says registered.
I believe that's a mistake with the colors. I apologize, Mr. Wall, I didn't notice that. That should be under review, but I will double check if you give me a moment.
I also have a question. Is this on, maybe I haven't never noticed this either, where it says the applicant has not responded with agreement or disagreement to the city council's recently imposed conditions reducing the number of bookings in a 7-day period to 1 and limiting the overnight guest calculation to 2 per bedrooms? So what, does that mean she's not in agreement or she's unaware?
Ms. Davis, would you like, if you pause 3 seconds, can you please answer the chairwoman's question?
Yes, I am in agreement with that proposed change. I emailed Summer Peoples back about that, and I'm not sure why that says neither agrees nor disagrees in there.
Okay. Anything else?
I don't have any questions.
No questions? Anybody have any questions for the applicant? All right, well, we'll close this hearing, and we don't have any other speakers, and open it up for discussion or a motion, please.
Madam Chair, I move that we approve item 12 on the agenda.
Thank you. Do I have a second, please?
Second.
I have a call for the question.
If you're in favor of the motion, say yes, and if you're opposed, say no. Mr. Alcaraz?
Yes.
Mr. Barnes?
Yes.
Mr. Costin?
Yes.
Mr. Graham, Mr. Horsley, Mr. Inman, and Ms. Klein are all absent. Mr. Redmond?
Yes.
Mr. Wall?
Yes.
Mr. Weiner?
Yes.
And Ms. Oliver?
Yes.
By a recorded vote of 7 for and 0 against, agenda item 12 is hereby recommended for approval by the Planning Commission.
Madam Chair, the next item is agenda item 13, GG Property Management LLC for conditional use permit request for short-term rental at 713 North Gate Court in the Rose Hall District. The applicant's representative is Jennice Rogers. Ms. Rogers, you have up to 10 minutes. Thank you.
Hello, my name is
Hello.
Janice Rogers. Representative of GG Property Management. I've been managing short-term rentals for approximately 5 years. And I was assisting the owner in getting his property approved and to start the short-term rental process. We have a different business model in terms of how we operate dealing with short-term rentals. Most of our advertisements, what we generally try to do is get long-term guests in a sense of travel nurses, or we have an insurance company that we work with. If someone has damage to their home and it has water damage and they may need a short-term place to stay. But sometimes we have vacancies, so we open up the calendar to allow shorter stays, less than 30 days. So one of the reasons why we always seek to get the approvals and the permits and the proper registrations, so that if we do encounter vacancies, we have the option of doing that. So adhering to the 1 per week isn't an issue for us, because obviously our goal is to have longer term stays, but it just helps with the business model when you do have vacancies to allow shorter term stays. I know there was a question or a condition in regards to the parking. There's one parking space per bedroom, and I guess the way the property sits, 2 of the spaces lie within a right-of-way. I know we were talking about doing that immediately to get that fixed, but then there was some conversations about work that was going on in the city dealing with the storm drain, and I know they dug up the front yard and they did a lot of stuff in the front of the property. So we initially held off on that, and then we were notified that now the project will not affect the property. So if approved, we will move forward to extend the driveway. There's no sidewalk, so even though the driveway sits in the right-of-way, there's no sidewalk that would be impeded on that. So I think the other condition we also agreed to regarding the, was the 2, I guess it was down to the guests, 2 per bedroom versus 3 per bedroom. So we're in agreement with that as well. So.
Great, thank you. Do we have any questions for her? Yes, David?
It's not really a question. I want to explain to you why we, in my opinion, why we pulled this off the consent agenda. We're trying to keep short-term rentals out of neighborhoods, okay? And I'm glad you pointed out the fact that you do more longer-term rentals, and that's really nice to hear. I like hearing that, because we don't want to do 365-day rentals in Rose Hall District. But I like the way that this goes, that you're doing this. So I just want to explain that to you. That's kind of, we wanted to get your side of what was going on there, and I like it, so I'm good with it. But in the future, the way things are going, they're probably not going to be allowed if you're not in the overlay district, just to let you know for future.
Okay.
Okay?
Would that be grandfathered in, or is that?
Either you're in the overlay district or I don't believe so. We're still working on that. It's still work in progress.
Okay.
Okay? I just wanted to point out that's why we pulled off the consent agenda.
Okay.
Unless Jack wanted to add something.
I don't have any questions for the applicant.
Okay.
No, that's great.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Madam Chair, there are 3 speakers signed up to comment.
Okay.
The first speaker is Riddell Lane, followed by Andrew White. Ms. Lane, please pause for 3 seconds before stating your name for the record. Thank you. Next speaker is Andrew White.
Hello, my name's Andrew White, and I'm a neighbor to this property. I've lived on the court for about 6 years now, and it is a court. And ever since this property started to be used as a short-term rental, basically our court's been turned into a regular street or a thoroughfare. People going all hours of the day, all hours of the night. It's not a residential court anymore. It seems this property has been operating as a short-term rental currently. There's been anywhere from 6 to 7 cars parked in the driveway, the street. I have a couple pictures, but I doubt you'll be able to see them. You're so far away. But I would like to request that if this is going to be approved for a short-term rental, maybe we can keep it to, one family every 30 days or a long-term rental. I wouldn't be opposed to that. But the current model of it being a short-term rental is, this is a residential neighborhood. It's not the ocean front. There's no attractions around it. I think the amphitheater is 3.3 miles away. Town Center is 3.1 miles away. So there's no attractions within the general vicinity of this area. So I would like to keep it a long-term rental, a normal rental, and that's all I have. Thank you.
I have a question. Sorry.
Yes, go right ahead.
Oh, where do you live?
I live at 705 Northgate Court, 2 houses down.
Left, right?
It's if you're looking at the house, it's to the right.
Okay.
So it's the second house on the right of the court. So
Okay.
they are passing the house every time they go in and out.
I'd like to see the pictures if they're available to us.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Here you go.
Just bring them to the front
You
desk.
can give them right to,
Thank you.
I have a question.
Yes, sir.
So how long has this house been operating as a short-term rental?
Well, like I said, I've lived on the court for 6 years, and it seems it's been probably the start of this summer. So we noticed something. The house was for sale probably a year ago, and then that's when we kind of noticed, another neighbor and I, that it seems people are coming and going quite frequently and not, I would say, probably not residing there. I mow my neighbor's grass. He's an elderly man, so talking to him, we kind of all were on the page of, why does this house have so much turnover? Why is there so many cars coming and going? And then another neighbor of mine pointed out that they found it on Airbnb, so that's why it was operating. I guess it was operating as a short-term rental, which then we saw the orange sign, and they were asking for a conditional use to operate as a short-term rental, which it seemed like it was already operating as one, so,
And repeat again about the parked cars?
So most of the time, there is between 6, 7, 8 parked cars, either 2 on the street, 4 in the driveway, or, and I think the driveway, I guess they requested for a concrete addition. It looks like it's gravel now.
Right.
So,
Thank you. Any other questions for the?
No, I'm good.
No, okay.
thank you.
Thank
I'm sorry,
you.
I've got a question.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yes.
How often would you say it's been rented?
This summer's been busy. I'd say constantly, probably. And the thing is, it's different cars. That's what I noticed most. It's not like, you'd see the same cars pulling in and out. It's different cars, probably on a weekly basis. And I'd say once a week, maybe more. So it seems like, to me, if I'm seeing different cars at a property, that means they're probably not living there, and they're always, North Carolina plates, New Jersey plates. They're not Virginia residents, which is not odd because we're a military town. But when you're only seeing this car there for 2 or 3 days at a time, or 4 or 5 days at a time, that's when I would assume that it's already operating as a short-term rental. So,
Thanks.
Thank you.
thank you.
You want your photo back?
Oh,
Madam Chair, the last speaker is Michael Wilson.
Thank you.
Mr. Wilson, please state your name for the record.
My name is Michael Wilson. I work for Public Utilities. I am called out all the time to fix your water lines for you. I live at 709, the house right beside it on the right there. I am constantly woken up by noise. And it's really making me mad. I come out at all hours of the night, so I need my rest where I can make good decisions for my workers to keep them safe. If I don't got to sleep, I don't make good decisions. Somebody might get hurt. The house been rented out weekly, time and time and time, arguments, music played loud, they out back, making a lot of noise, drinking, doing whatever. They here to be on vacation. I don't blame them for that. I ain't seen the house rented out for a long term, twice, since I've been there. All the rest been weekly, 3 days, skip, 3 days, week, and that's it. My car has been hit by the renters there. I don't think they were going to tell me about it until my wife pointed it out to me, and I went out there and looked at it, and I called the owner up that owned the property, and he called the people up, and then they came out and talked to me. I think they were just going to pack up and leave, and my car was going to be hit, and me trying to find out who did it. I really don't get my sleep here lately, so I like to have the place to ban, and the family moved in. It's a residential area. I bought it for that reason, to have peace and quiet with my neighbors, and that's why I want it back to. I'm just that way.
Thank you, Mr. Wilson. Anybody have any questions for Mr. Wilson?
I do.
Mr. Weiner?
So you contacted the owner about your car being hit. Have you contacted him about, I think you know the owner?
Yeah, I got it resolved. Like I say, I called the owner, and the people came outside. Well, first, I went over there and knocked on the door, and nobody answered the door.
Okay, well, my question is, have you contacted the owner about the noise and everything?
Yeah, I talked to the owner a couple times already and told them about the noise. They said they got rules in place, but without somebody there to enforce them rules, if I was out on vacation, I mean, you know, just like you would be out on vacation.
But there is ways you can get around that. Call the non-emergency number.
Yeah.
Call 311.
Yep. It's been called a couple times already.
You have done, okay.
Yep.
All right.
So
Mr. Wilson, I got one.
Yeah.
Have you ever talked with the representative of the house?
I talked to the owner of the house.
The representative that's there here locally? The
Uh,
applicant that was just up front?
no, I don't.
I'm just asking him, sorry. I just need to know if you've had any contact or if you had a complaint, if that representative was in touch.
Was answering back. Got it.
Yes. Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you, Mr. Wilson.
you're welcome.
Madam Chair, there are no more speakers.
Question for staff.
Huh?
A question for staff.
Okay.
Or have we known that this was a short-term, has this been operating as a short-term rental without a conditional use permit?
Based on the information from our website, they have rented within the last 30 days, and it appears to have been operating since June.
And did you all know about the 311 calls from Mr. Wilson?
No, so one of the disconnects with 311 is that they get called in as noise complaints, and not necessarily someone saying that they think there's a use that's not being followed. So more than likely during that time frame, we've asked 311 now, whenever there's a noise complaint, just send it to us so we can look at them all, just to see if there's a use violation. But there was a window where if it was just a noise complaint, they would just check and handle it on the 311 side.
So obviously, it hasn't been responded to, though, as Mr. Alcaraz get it out.
The other question, has the applicant been paying the taxes, transient taxes? Are they registered basically with the city?
1 second, sir. It says that they are registered. They are on the Commissioner of Revenue's registered list.
And did we ever get an answer on that? Remember I guess it was the Tuesday night, we were there so long, and it was that question of whether they register with the commissioner and then they get to start, or do they register and they have to wait for the CUP? I mean, did we ever get a definitive answer on?
They're not supposed to operate until they get the conditional use permit, Madam
Okay,
Chair.
well then that's my answer. Okay, all right.
Do you want to come back up?
Would you like to come back up, ma'am?
So I was engaged to start assisting with managing this property about 2 or 3 months ago when we started the application process. And I was notified that they did something that they were operating, and I told them, based on the City of Virginia Beach laws, we would need to take that down and go through the official process. So my understanding is that the calendar is completely blocked. There's no current reservations right now, and that we are waiting to get the approval to start. So as a property manager, I will be basically handling everything. So anything that happened prior to that, honestly, I don't have any knowledge of. But I started the entire process of getting them on the right track. I introduced them to the business model of utilizing travel nurses, as well as the insurance companies that I have connections with, to do longer short-term stays versus your 2 and 3 day stays, because it's a more sustainable business model.
And when did you come on board with this house?
It had to been May or June is when we started the application. I can look at the date of the application, because I think I submitted it like maybe twice.
And so they hired you, I guess the owner of the house hired you in June, May, June?
Right, you're correct.
And they haven't been renting since May or June?
Not to my, well, I don't know, to be honest, I don't know. What I do know is that it was listed, and I told them that we needed to get it off. That much I do know. So that may be the instances that they're speaking of. I don't know how far back it was.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Hold
I
on.
do have an
Yes,
additional
go
question.
right ahead.
Can the staff put up the parking? I just want to get some clarity on I'm not sold on this application, but, at least, in this part, let me get some clarification. So the red area is going to be paved as a driveway addition. There's already gravel there. Is it the plan to pave that red area? Is that the goal of?
Yep, that is the plan, to have
Okay.
that.
So
that
can
paved.
somebody on staff, take a look at that? Because we had a similar application not necessarily similar, but one where they kind of paved it all the way up to the right of way near Brandon Middle School. And so I think that this would be similar in that they would need to angle. There's only a certain amount of driveway width that's allowed in the frontage for access to the right-of-way. And then beyond that, it has to be angled at I think 30, I'm not sure what the angle is. But I think that the way that it's shown currently is not in compliance with the city.
Mr. Wall,
standards.
one of the condition states that they will have to get a driveway permit to appropriately install a driveway that meets the criteria. They would have to install, they are permitted to have, and correct me if I'm wrong, staff, a 20-foot wide entrance onto the right-of-way. Right now, it's a one-car entrance, as you can see by that red part, not legally existing. So they would have enough room to add legally the additional driveway.
Okay, so they could add 20 feet.
Correct.
Okay, all right.
Any more questions?
Yeah, I gotta ask
Yeah,
one.
go ahead.
So when you came on board May or June, since they've only just started paying taxes in June, did you get them to go to the city to register? How did that happen?
Yeah, because I actually registered them through my company.
Okay,
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
and did the, okay, all right.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Mr. Wilson, could you come back up 1 second, please? I have a question for you.
Yes, ma'am.
Tell me again how often this house is rented?
This house, since she took over, it's been rented almost every week. This here week, I hadn't seen nobody there. Last week, there was somebody there. The week before, I think it was, and I know about the middle of last month, it was rented out because I remember the people out there arguing and the baby crying out back.
And it has been rented since, I think the other gentleman stated since
It's been
June,
rented
May?
out since December of last year,
Yeah, I'd say,
or
no, we noticed, maybe, January, February.
yeah, about
Okay.
January, February of last year, it's been rented out. And like I said, there only was 2 people in there. A group of guys that were working off the Navy base that rented it for 3 weeks, I think it was. Their company rented for 3 weeks. And there was a family over there that was going back to Germany, I think.
Okay,
And they rented it for a couple weeks there at the beginning.
got it.
And the
All right.
rest been short time.
Okay. Thank you very much.
About the driveway there, right in between the houses there, there's a little area right there.
Mm-hmm.
And they pull up in there and block part of my driveway too. The driveway right here,
Yes, sir.
there's a green box that sits in the middle of that area right there,
Uh-huh.
where that dark spot is. There's a box that sits there, it belongs to Verizon. I don't think you're allowed to pave over that spot,
Okay. Got it. Thank you.
so.
And
Oh, go ahead,
can
Jack.
we keep the view up, so they can actually cut that curb out right there and have a full access into their driveway? Is that correct?
Yes.
Yeah, this is actually for the city.
Oh,
Yes.
okay.
As long as the radius of the
Thank you,
driveway
Mr.
does not
Yeah.
extend past the property line, the extension of the property line. So,
Okay.
the pole is about where the property line is, so the radius of the driveway can't extend past that. So, in other words, it has to stop that radius. So the driveway flare can't extend out past that extension of the property line. There is room for it according to the plan.
Thank you, Mr. Wilson.
Okay, thank you.
All right, we'll close it up and open it up to the commissioners for discussion and/or motion. Yes, sir, Mr. Wall.
I'll lead off. First of all, this is not an area that you would typically find a short-term rental. Nonetheless, they appear to meet, the requirements of the ordinance. However, there are existing issues, existing, what appear to be, conflicts, with the residents that live on that street. So, I feel this is similar to others that, we've denied. We looked at one, I think it was last week in Croatan, and it was like, this is not in an area that typically has short-term rentals. And not only that, there were people that had great issues with it. And here we have people that have spoken against it. So, I have a hard time supporting this application.
Yes, good.
I agree with Jack. First off, it's operating without a conditional use permit. You never like to see that. But it's not operating well.
Right.
And I don't know why we should recommend approval of something that clearly isn't operating well.
Right.
And it's just that simple. I think we've kind of frankly belabored the point. I don't really see much to like about this application.
Okay.
So it's my view. Jack, if you want to make a motion, I'd be happy to back you up.
Okay, I make a motion that we deny agenda item number 13.
Second.
Anybody else? All right, we'll call for the question.
Okay. If you're in favor of the motion, say yes, and if you're opposed, say no. And this motion is to deny the application. Mr. Alcaraz?
Yes.
Mr. Barnes?
Yes.
Mr. Costin?
Yes.
Mr. Graham, Mr. Horsley, Mr. Inman, and Ms. Klein are all absent. Mr. Redmond?
Yes.
Mr. Wall?
Yes.
Mr. Weiner?
Yes.
And Ms. Oliver?
Yes.
By a recorded vote of 7-4 and 0 against, agenda item 13 is hereby denied by the Planning Commission.
Thank you.
Madam Chair, the final items, agenda items 14, 15, 16, and 17. Ocean Rental Properties LLC for conditional use permit requests for short-term rentals at 516 Norfolk Avenue, units 1, 2, 4, and 5 in the Beach District. The applicant's representative is Eddie Bourdon. Mr. Bourdon, you have up to 10 minutes. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Lanfair, Madam Chair, members of the commission. Again, for the record, Eddie Bourdon, Virginia Beach Attorney representing Ocean Rental Properties LLC. Mr. Bichard and Mr. Amato with my client are here this afternoon. The application involves an existing 4-unit multifamily dwelling that has existed on Norfolk Avenue, another important gateway to the resort area since back in the, I think, the late 40s. The 4 units are 3 one-bedroom units and 1 that is a 2-bedroom unit. Appreciate Mr. Kemp's presentation to the commission this morning in the informal. Back in December, this application was filed when Mr. Hirschberger advised me that the parking in the front was in the right-of-way, and again, the application was filed by my clients. When I was advised it was in the right-of-way, even though it's been used for parking for decades and decades, we said that we would take a deferral and determine how we could place all the parking on site as has been the desire of the commission. And back in May, we provided the plan that you saw this morning that's right up here on the screen. In reviewing all of this information with my clients on a number of occasions, the one thing, and listening to what was stated this morning just reaffirmed what we came to the conclusion, the best course of action to ensure that not only will we have the 5 on-site parking spaces, which we clearly can do. We can clearly create 6 on-site parking, actually 8 on-site parking spaces. The 2 that are in green, while there's nothing legally binding those It's my understanding that they are being used by the owners of 518B adjacent. So we've got 6 that we can provide on site, but the most appropriate way to do this is going to be to close the unimproved section of Norfolk Avenue. And you can see up there, I don't think this thing works anymore. The church next door closed that street a number of years ago. My clients actually own the underlying fee in that section of Norfolk Avenue, so we would propose to close that. We'll have to file an application, and we would also close it in front of the the 2-unit condo in between, and provide that additional land to that condominium, which will provide them with the opportunity to have some green space or provide additional parking on that property. But the 2 spaces in front clearly meet code. However, it would not be very attractive. And so what we would do by closing the right-of-way, the driveway would come in, and then you would have at least 2 spots that would be located directly east of the driveway in front to go along with the spaces in the rear. The conditions in the recommendation are all acceptable. This will be professionally managed, as all of the ocean rental properties are, with someone it'll be far better managed than the long-term rentals, as we've discussed on a number of occasions. But this plan will work, meets all the code requirements, but I want to, as Ms. Oliver mentioned this morning, it would be far better if the parking in the front weren't sitting, right in front of the dwelling. So that's one of the things that we will agree to as a condition of the short-term rental, that there be an approved and street closure and a re-subdivision to include the additional excess property, which has already been determined on the property next door to be excess, in front of frankly, in front of the 2 properties. We can do it and add them to both. I think that's the better way to provide the parking than what is shown here. But as it's shown here, all we would have to provide are parking spaces, the 1 in the front, we don't have to provide both, and 4, 3, 5, and 6 in the back, which will all fit on the property and meet all the requirements. The driveway that is there is 15 or 16 feet wide. At the north end, we have 10-foot and 11-foot wide, 12-foot max driveways that people use to turn into their condo units in the back, et cetera. So there's plenty of room for that to work. It works just fine now, and will continue to work with the additional impervious surface, and we'll have to meet all the stormwater management requirements, which might include underground storage of stormwater. The property as it exists today, again, it was built 60-plus years ago, and there's not a lot of stormwater management that's taking place. There is some with the improvements that were made. All the conditions as recommended by staff are acceptable. The weekly and the 2 persons per unit in the bed. Be happy to answer any questions.
Yes, George, go ahead.
I just want to make sure I heard it right. You're gonna apply for a street closure for both properties?
Well, my clients own the underlying fee in the unimproved portion of Norfolk Avenue in front of both 18A and 18B. So from a cost standpoint, it makes eminently good sense to close both sections. We would provide the portion in front of 20A to the condominium that exists on 20A. We would not maintain that would belong to them unless they didn't want it. But they would get the opportunity to add additional parking in front of that duplex as well, which is probably something that would be perceived to be beneficial, I would hope, anyway.
Anybody other questions for Mr. Burdon? No.
And that would be a condition of the short-term rental application or approval if it were to be approved by the commission.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
We have speakers?
Madam Chair, there are two speakers signed up to comment. The first speaker is Stanley Vane, followed by Robert Perkins. Mr. Vane, please state your name for the record. Thank you.
Thank you, Council. My name is Stanley William Bain. I'm the owner of 515 and 513 9th Street, which is directly behind them. I came here before and complained about the Airbnb parking. We have such a massive trouble with the over parking at Airbnb. For instance, you can give him his 5 parkings. There's 7 Airbnbs right in our neighborhood, right around in a strip. There's 2 of them that are illegal. And what is happening is that these people are renting Airbnbs and then they're having their guests come. And they're coming to our street on 9th Street and actually parking in the middle of the street and blocking traffic. The last time I was here, I complained about it. And you said, call the number. I have several incident reports. Several
Sir,
incident reports.
I just, don't lose your train of thought, but if you could speak into the microphone, that'll help. Thank you.
Okay, I forgot where I'm at, excuse me.
You made phone calls.
Okay, so you told us to make phone calls. When there's noise, call. When there's parking problems, call. I have pictures of where I have incident numbers with the law, where our 9th Street was literally blocked off. There's a legal parking space, and there's an Airbnb parking, and nobody could get through. That was on 8/28, incident number 746, and it was Officer Mabry, M-A-B-R-Y. When the law came, when I called the law, they said that parking enforcement would have to tow the car. And they made the legal person that was parked on the street move. Parking enforcement never towed. Our street is off the radar. Parking enforcement don't enforce it. The law don't come enforce it. You have these Airbnb people that are parking on the pavement. It is an absolute nightmare. I've called again, Officer Chetton, and fortunately they found the owner and the car was moved. Talking about cars that are parked right in the middle of the road. The fireman that lives next to me was supposed to call because he needs to get to work. My concern is with the parking in front of this house.
Right here in the mic.
I'm concerned with the parking here at this house. All they did, I mean, it was a beautiful, I don't know how many decades it was a beautiful old beach house. They tear one down and they put 6 houses up. And they take this old beach house and they renovate it and they put 4 apartments in it. And now they want to turn around there and rent it out to 16 people a week differently. If this was a regular house that was not cut up into 4 apartments, you could maybe rent the house out to a family of 6 to 8. And now we're going to have 8 up to 15 people a week parking behind me, coming in, and influencing our street. I did talk with the other Airbnbs on 9th Street, and the solution is now we have security cameras for the parking, and we've also turned around there and applied for a residential parking permit that will possibly help stop the parking, the extra parking of the Airbnbs. My neighborhood, Shadow Lawn, is a rental community. It is not a neighborhood no more. I got 5 of them across the street. I got an illegal one right across the street, and possibly another illegal one that's in the second condo. I'm not sure, but I believe it's possible. But the parking overflows on the 9th Street, and it's really causing a problem. And then these pictures here, there's not enough room for 4 people to park here right now. And then these builders, they come up and they sign these signs, parking for a designated spot. The houses that are built right behind him, the city says they're illegal. I mean, after the houses are built and after the people buy them, and then you turn around there and you have city officials come in there and they say, this parking spot for 27 9th Street is illegal.
Sir, I have to stop you now. You've run out
I'm
of
done.
time. But I do want to ask you questions, so don't sit down yet. Where are you directly behind him? Well,
My property, I have a fence,
see where his property is? It's the blue.
the blue. I'm here,
You're here.
condo right there.
And then there's 5 of them across the street from you, correct?
Oh, God, yes. I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
I
mean,
got it.
You know, but
got
I mean, and then you have all these people. I mean, it's like, this was a single-family home. This was the yard that went to here. Decades of having gravel in the front yard. I only recall that being done after he bought the.
Sir, I gotta get you to the mic.
After he bought the house, and he throws the gravel in the front yard, and it becomes a parking place. But we also have troubles with people parking behind the easement. Just like this picture here. There's 2 cars here, and there's a car parked behind it. It's not gonna stop. And we have that down with the other one. I mean, this is an Airbnb, 2 houses down is another Airbnb. Across the street from me, they're buying these houses and cutting them in half and taking away city parking so they can extend their driveways for their businesses.
Got it.
So we're hoping that we can get residential parking on that street that would help take care of it. And I think that's in the works right now. And that's my complaint, as opposed to I rent to a single professional woman. I own both of them. I don't want Airbnbs. And, you know, having all these people coming in all the time, a lot of people have better skill sets than others when it comes to renting these out. But some of the people and the characters that I've seen, it makes me a little concerned.
Got it.
I'm a retired merchant marine. I've been around the world, but I'm a little concerned when I see Michigan, Chicago, Detroit tags, and I know what gang tattoos look like.
Thank you.
Madam Chair, the next speaker is Robert Perkins.
Hello, Mr. Perkins.
Mr. Perkins, please state your name for the record. Thank you.
My name is Robert Perkins. I currently live at 518A. Previously, I had sent letters out to the city council and also to each planning commissioner. Like that same letter, I'm going to read because I'm not that great of a speaker. I do have copies here. If each one of you would allow me, just let you have one.
You can hand them right to Bill. He'll take.
Right. I had talked to Bill previously on the phone. He got me on the docket. I appreciate that. I'll wait for a second until you get the letter.
Well, your time's ticking.
Okay, all right.
You get started.
Basically, I'm just going to read this if you don't mind. Bear with me. As a full-time resident of 518 Norfolk Avenue, Unit A, I am opposed to the conditional use permit requested for 516 Norfolk Avenue, apartment 1, 2, 4, and 5. This conditional use permit is not compatible with residential living. At this juncture, all my neighbors are year-round permanent residents. We have invested in this property as a home and object to having it to become a condo for short-term or seasonal rentals. My specific concerns include negative aspects of short-term rentals like cramped parking, trash, noise, traffic congestion, and a revolving door of new visitors. Please consider the quality of life of the permanent residents of the complex before you vote on the conditional use permit for 516 Norfolk Avenue 1, 2, 4, and 5. We ask you fully consider the needs of those who reside in the community as their principal residents. Would you approve of property in a dense neighborhood like our condo complex to be rented for compensation for less than 30 days? What will happen is that the use of property will then become more like a hotel or timeshare property filled with visitors who are not vested in the community. I fully support tourism and am now a very proud resident of Virginia Beach. I believe that restrictions on the use of residential property have served us well for decades. I understand property rights and the ability of the property owner to receive rent as compensation, but I am opposed to short-term rental approach and is simply not compatible with our residential community as designed. Right now, this is an investment property. It's going to become to a hotel. I recently moved from Chesapeake to Virginia Beach to take care of my daughter and my grandson. I didn't have to come to Virginia Beach, but I found a place very close to them. I was happy and blessed, who's my realtors here, was able to find me and get this. I'm not wanting to make a capital investment of close to $400,000 to have. Right now, originally, Bouchard gave me a letter the other day saying it was as much as 3 per bedroom. That's 15 people. Now I understand you're lowering it down to 2. That's 10 people right next to me. Also, if you don't mind, I'm going to give you these, and you look at the actual property photos, because I don't think you have the parking.
Thank you. Do we have any questions for Mr. Perkins?
I just,
Yes.
am I time over?
Well, you know what? Mr. Redmond's going to ask you a question.
Okay, thank you.
And you can continue.
Look at the thing, because I'm a little bit, as far as I know, my plot given to me,
Well, you got to ask, Mr. Redmond's got to ask you a question.
okay,
That's okay. You're passionate about it. So where is where's 516, where's 518? Show me where are you? This doesn't help us, obviously, if you guys can switch over
Okay.
to the,
the pictures you'll see, you're showing from
Can you all
out
switch it?
here across the grass.
Yeah, there you
here.
go. Thank you.
Go back, please. Well,
that's where I was going.
go back to the other one if you don't mind.
You can't find
I
it?
guess A12 is me.
Where-
Go back
Go
to
to your diagram.
Site plan.
the layout.
All right, this is,
There you
all right,
go.
I'm 518A. The gentleman behind me.
Oh,
is
you're
like
next
this.
door.
Okay, I'm right next door, believe me.
Oh.
Okay? Now, right now, if you look at the pictures, there is a small little entrance made for in here. You see the angle of the rocks and everything like that? They are currently, according to my plot, you have a conditional use up to my property line here for people to be able to come in here. I don't have a problem with that. My code is completely over here. I'm getting people, which they're very good residents.
Sir,
I don't
Mr.
mind.
Perkins, I might put you back at the podium in
Okay.
front of that microphone.
All right. Currently, the residents are using my access, my driveway to go into their gravel area. I don't mind that too much. It's a couple of feet. They're not completely coming on, but there's no way in the world you can get 4 cars in there without coming across my access. According to my plot and everything like that, the driveway can be used for access for Tom 518B, but it's not meant to be used for anything else.
Mr. Perkins, I think your time's expired. You answered my question. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you.
Madam Chair, there are no more known speakers.
Okay. Mr. Burdon?
Thank you. All right, I'll start with Mr. Perkins. Mr. Perkins owns a 2-unit condominium, 518A, and there's an ingress-egress easement between the properties. The driveway is on both properties, and lot 18A has the right to use that ingress-egress easement. It does not belong, quote-unquote, to Mr. Perkins. He owns a condominium unit in a 2-unit condominium that is subject to the ingress-egress easement and has the benefit of an ingress-egress easement on the adjacent lot to the east. So it's not up to Mr. Perkins as to, the ability to go up and down that driveway belongs to both properties. Excuse me. Mr. Bain, if we could put the map back up there. Mr. Bain's condo is not directly behind. I understand it because his numbers aren't up there. It can be confusing to him. But his property is catty corner. He lives in 513 9th Street, which is here, 15 is also there, and that is rented. He owns those 2 units in that duplex, but it's not directly behind my client's property. It is, however, adjacent to 16 or 18 units in Leisure Square. I'd also ask the commission to take note that 9th Street is a dead end. And this piece of property has no access to or from 9th Street. And most of Mr. Bain's commentary had to do with short-term rentals on 9th Street. So this isn't on 9th Street. This will be professionally managed, as all of my clients' short-term rentals are. And you've heard testimony from other folks at other hearings about their management and how good it is, and how it probably will, frankly, be better than the situation that exists today, in that if there's any issues whatsoever, you get immediate response and someone out there. And I can't speak to the other people who have short-term rentals on 9th Street with whom Mr. Bain has issues, but that will not be the case. And I think you all are very comfortable with that fact, with how my clients operate. This will definitely not be a hotel. And again, you have people cleaning every week, you have trash pickup, you have professional management on call, totally different than with your long-term rental use. We do concur that the better way to handle the parking would be to close the right-of-way, the excess right-of-way, unused right-of-way in front of both properties, which would actually be to Mr. Perkins' benefit as well, in that it would provide some additional area in front of his unit and in front of 518B for their use, as opposed to it being public right-of-way. It's probably being used now to one degree or another, but it would belong to them. It would increase their setback from potential public use, which there isn't a need for, has been evidenced by the closure that's taken place on the adjacent property of the church. Again, I'll be happy to answer any questions that any of you may have, but this, as is, meets the requirements of the ordinance, but we absolutely will agree that the short-term rental will not take place unless and until that excess right-of-way is closed, and a better way to provide more than the necessary parking will be provided. The parking in the back can all be accommodated. The curbing has to be modified, but it can all be accommodated. But we believe the better way to do it is to increase the parking in the front, make it legal. Be happy to answer any questions.
I forgot.
Yes, George, go right ahead.
There was a comment made that these units were just kind of remodeled, but I see 4 entrances, I see 4 meters. Is this all old?
Oh, absolutely. This is totally legal. It goes back to the 1950s. Yes, it's not something that's just been done, not by any stretch of the imagination. And your staff checked all that out. Mr. Hirschberger checked that out. In fact, it was checked out many years ago, verified. Now, the Bichards did go in and upgrade and make improvements, but not to create 4 units. There's always 4 units. We wouldn't be here otherwise.
That's all
Anybody have any questions for Mr. Verdun?
And they are 3 one-bedroom units, and 1 two-bedroom unit. They're not large units that'll have a lot of people in them.
No more questions?
Thank you all.
Thank you. All right, we'll close this hearing and open it up for discussion and or a motion. Anybody?
George. George, Beach.
Well, I appreciate the applicant looking like, I mean, they went and made the changes to get the parking, because that's always been a thorn on our side, to make sure that criteria was made. And now he's come up, or the applicant representative has come up with an idea that for a street closure to make it more pleasing to look at. So I'm going to recommend approval unless anyone wants to talk about it. Discuss it. Oh, well, I'll make a motion that we approve it with the condition, as the representative said, that he would go for a street closure is that what?
Do you mind if I take a stab at the
Yes,
condition, Mr.
I
Alvarez?
would love that.
The new condition would be added as condition number 18. Prior to the operation of the short-term rental use, a street closure shall be submitted and approved by the city council for the unimproved portion of Norfolk Avenue in front of 516 and 518 Norfolk Avenue. A new parking plan utilizing the closed portion of the right-of-way shall be reviewed by the zoning administrator. If city council does not approve the street closure, all parking shall comply with the parking plan as submitted.
Thank you.
We got a second?
A second.
We have a motion and a second. Call for the question, please.
Okay, if you're in favor of the motion, say yes, and if you're opposed, say no. And this is to recommend approval. Mr. Alcaraz?
Yes.
Mr. Barnes?
Yes.
Mr. Costin?
Yes.
Mr. Graham, Mr. Horsley, Mr. Inman, and Ms. Klein are all absent. Mr. Redmond?
Yes.
Mr. Wall?
Yes.
Mr. Weiner?
Yes.
And Ms. Oliver?
Yes.
By recorded vote of 7-4 and 0 against, agenda items 14, 15, 16, and 17 are hereby recommended for approval with the new condition 18 regarding the street closure requirement.
Madam Chair, those were the last items on the agenda. The recording of this meeting will be posted on the Planning Commission's webpage within 10 days. That website is bbgov.com/PC. The applications not deferred or withdrawn will be scheduled for a future city council meeting. Staff will let the applicants know when that will be, and those dates will be posted on the Planning Commission's webpage. Madam Chair?
Thank you very much. Is there any other business?
Madam Chair, will note, as I stated I would do for the commission, at your seats, I placed a copy of the maps that are currently the draft overlay district areas that are proposed by Councilman Jones and Councilman Wood, where those would be the only locations where short-term rentals would be permitted once the new ordinance is adopted.
Right.
I will send later this afternoon via email, and anyone that wants a hard copy, I'll make that available to you, copies of the proposed ordinances as we continue to move forward.
Right.
And again, as I said, we will be moving very quickly at the request of the council members, so more than likely this will end up at your October public hearing.
Right. Thank you. There's no other business, then I adjourn this meeting.